Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be talking about this monster November storm system that is gonna be bringing a lot of severe weather. It is ongoing currently. If you recall, for the past several days, I've been mentioning that this severe weather risk for this storm is going to be concerning. And you can see that indeed that Storm Prediction Center did issue a moderate, which is a 4 out of 5. That is, that is uncomfortably high. And you can see major metros are in that vicinity, including Dallas, Fort Worth, and whatnot. So that is one part. The other part is extremely heavy rain going on across the north, and there will be a snowy side to this thing as well. Though, arguably, what it did across the western United States and the mountain snow has already kind of, again, the wintry side of this system has already pretty much played out. Now it's the more dangerous severe weather side that is the more concerning part. So let's just start talking about this. First off, I want to show you the radar. So again, this thing is exploding, right? It did that today, today throughout the day. It's especially that heavy rain band is just super impressive. I mean, obviously the severe weather is impressive, but that's just more, dangerous. But I mean, also impressive from the meteorological standpoint. But look at this. So this is 1:40 p.m. Notice we had a decent rain, right? You can see that stretched out cold front. But we did have those pockets of orange, which indicates moderate to heavy rain, and there were some embedded thunderstorms. But look how stationary this thing has been across Iowa, Missouri. I do apologize. The radar's kind of glitching. It's just kind of just loading. But do note it's just been pouring over these areas for hours. And you can see that especially over the last few hours, there has been an area across northern Missouri, Iowa, Iowa that has been expanding, and that is moderate to very heavy rainfall occurring, and that will probably continue to occur for the next few hours across these areas. So thankfully these areas aren't too wet. They haven't been seeing much of a wet fall, so the soils can absorb a lot of this moisture. But yeah, a very heavy rain producer. There are going to be embedded thunderstorms of mainly the non-severe kind, and further south is where we start getting severe thunderstorms, and definitely the type that could be life altering for some people if they get hit by the winds, the hail, and the tornado. So notice this has been going on, these scattered storms going through. You can see Dallas, Denton, many areas getting hit over and over again with these storms. So whilst not all of them are severe, all of them have heavy rain. So one after the other, there are going to be flash flood problems. And each one of these you can see is kind of a super cell-like structure, especially at the beginning right here, 5 o'clock. Now we're continuing to see that as we approach northeastern Texas and southeastern Oklahoma. This is where the threat is kind of peaking as I'm recording this video. Later on in the afternoon and evening hours and into the overnight hours, this thing will develop into a more singular line, and the heavy wind threat will be mainly kind of associated with that as it races through Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and whatnot. But tornadoes are still possible, and the hail is definitely still possible. So yes, an incredible system. 4 days ago, I did mention that the chance for a moderate was definitely uncomfortably high, and you could see that a moderate was issued. 2 days ago they had the slight, and then they had that enhanced, and then that moderate. I mean, you just saw the dynamics of the system. You could kind of tell from a long shot that this thing is going to be massive, and the National Weather Service was talking about it pretty early on, as the models were concerningly consistent with this threat. So again, the biggest concerning threat is the tornadoes and the wind. Notice the tornado threat pretty uncomfortably high, again right across the Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas kind of border areas, and that is where that is situated right now. So we are not done with the worst. In fact, the worst is, again, as I'm recording this video, it's unfolding. The wind threat, you can see, is also a bit more expansive, especially that 30% chance, but again, across the epicenter will be similar where the tornadoes are. And then the hail threat is a bit more, quite a bit more toned down, but still nonetheless a possibility. You can see it's pretty expansive as well. So yeah, definitely concerning. So once we get through this night, a lot of the severe weather will be calming down. You can see tomorrow the biggest threat is a marginal. They may issue a slight across maybe Louisiana and whatnot, but again, nothing compared to what's going on today. So I'm just absolutely exploding this system in terms of its power. And if you were to look at the National Weather Service, the Weather Ready Nation map, we do have a lot of areas that are even indirectly being impacted by this. So what I mean by that is, well, look at all these high wind or wind advisories and some high wind warnings across Wisconsin. There you can see in that kind of mustard color, but in that brown, those are all areas that could be seeing, potentially damaging gusts of wind. Definitely will be blowing around decorations and what's not, whatever you may have outside, patio furniture. So you could see Indiana, Illinois, the whole state of Indiana, whole state of Illinois, whole state of Michigan, a good portion of Ohio, Wisconsin, Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, even portions of Iowa will be seeing these high winds. Further out north and west, we have another system moving in, a separate one, and you can see that it's also producing extreme winds across Montana, Washington, Idaho, Wyoming, and very heavy snow and rain. And then the third one is brewing, that it's going to be hitting the southwest. So a lot of activity. We have just one storm that we have going on right now that's already a handful, let alone another one and a third one. So very active. And again, I've been mentioning that this pattern will be active for quite some time. Though it does appear in the long range, some models are starting to tone things down, which is probably good because this is rather unsustainable. And do note that right now, as I'm recording this video, we have a flash flood warning across a massive area of Oklahoma. This is obviously to do with that very heavy rain, so that is one concern. The water rises fast. It's honestly always catches me off guard, even when I look at my garden and whatnot. We have rain, we have a rainstorm, and areas that pool, and areas that flow into and accumulate water, they always rise super fast. So that's always something to note of. And obviously the more important thing is, look at those tornado warnings. We have several of them on the ground. You could assume that there is probably a tornado on the ground as I'm recording this. Hopefully people are taking the precautions from the local National Weather Service and the sirens. If you hear the sirens, obviously go indoors and seek shelter in a low-lying area. And you can see right there, 7:04 p.m. So not that long ago, a large and extremely dangerous tornado was, right, this is particularly, so they issue these pretty rarely. So this kind of just brings me chill reading at this, because that most likely if people don't take shelter and what's not, there will be loss of life. So it's always sad. But what I do want to recommend is, if you guys are in this area, right into Arkansas, Missouri, and Texas, and you have the tornado threat, I just want to say, go to Ryan Holiall. It's a YouTube channel. You probably know about him if you watch weather channels on YouTube. He's doing a live stream, and he does an absolutely amazing job showing these storms and tracking each and every one of them. He has saved numerous lives from that. So if you are in this area, I recommend that. I'll link his channel in the description box below. So that's something you guys should definitely go check out if you guys are in that area. I'm here just to kind of give you a brief overview of this entire system. So I went over the severe weather. I showed you this again. I'm not going to do my part really trying to track each one of these systems, each one of these individual storms. That requires a big radar, or a different radar, more high res, way more if you will, expensive than what this is. This is just a free radar. So that is that. I do want to show you now what the models are showing. So let's go and take a look at the HER model. So this is the model that goes out to 18 hours. It's not far out, but it is rather precise in its accuracy. So let's just zoom in on the north central United States. Actually, let's go south central. I want to first focus on the severe weather. Do note that as I push this into 7 p.m., so when I'm recording this video, Central Standard Time, this is what the model thinks the radar looks like, and you can see it's doing a pretty decent job. There are a few differences, but for the most part, it's a pretty good job. Notice into 8 p.m., this continues exploding rate. These storms continue. They're not weakening. They're not dying down. Well into 9 p.m., 10 p.m., this continues into Arkansas. Notice how it is more of a linear, develops into one single line versus several scattered lines, and with varying movements and speeds of direction. So as we push this into the overnight at 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11 p.m., you can see this line is still very impressive as it pushes into Arkansas, Louisiana. The tornado threat will still be there, but mainly the wind threat will be something that is definitely more noticeable. And, if you live across these areas, right there, Memphis, getting impacted by the Shreveport, Alexandria, New Orleans, eventually into Tupelo. These cities and areas, you'll still probably get woken up by fierce lightning and thunder during the night. You may not get, damage from this line of storms as it weakens, but it's gonna be an impressive night. But again, the next few hours are the most crucial. Do note that as we put this through time, again, that line quickly weakens, and the areas that remain the most dangerous for that severe weather is across the deep south, kind of into, the Louisiana and extreme portions of southern Mississippi and maybe Alabama and the panhandle of northwestern Florida. In terms of total accumulated precipitation, again, that flash flooding threat is pretty high. These models do their best trying to predict this. Obviously, as this thing speeds away, the flash flooding threat will diminish, as you could still get a decent 1 to 2 inches of rain, but it will be pretty much out of there, and it won't be several waves like we've been seeing across areas of Texas. And in terms of the other part of this system, which is the heavy rain further up north, you can see also very expansive, and at this point I'm pretty sure it's not even done across these areas. Yeah, you can see it's still going on. I do also want to mention that there's going to be a brief snow threat from this across Kansas. Notice that maybe cities like Wichita later on tonight could get a brief burst of snow resulting in 1 to 3 inches. And notice that even further north there will be thunderstorms. Obviously these won't be severe, but they will have thunder, lightning, have some gusty winds, maybe some small hail, so that is definitely something still to note. And yeah, this system really brings in very strong winds tomorrow for a lot of these areas, which is why we have those high wind warnings and watches and advisories issued for a lot of the eastern Midwest. But as we push this, you can see this weakens, and not necessarily weakens, but it really starts picking up speed, the actual low pressure, and yeah, it's gonna be out of here by probably later in the afternoon, by tomorrow. Let's go back to a model run from the same model that's just a few hours older, and it allows us to go further into time. Notice there could be maybe a secondary, some sort of a front developing here. Here's original line. Again, non-severe, definitely some gusty winds possible though. Notice as this pushes into Canada, into Ontario, the arrowhead of Minnesota, we do see some snow, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see some snow out of these areas here in the backside, maybe into Iowa, Minnesota, mixing in, resulting in some reduced visibilities and whatnot, because the models were earlier showing that, and I'm a little bit I have a feeling that some of this may be underdone by some of these models. Here's the NAM interpretation of that, pretty similar. And if we go further south to where that cold front was, notice that this develops into the line overnight, but by tomorrow, 10, 11, 12, it's pretty much done, and it kind of disconnects from the rest of that system, and it doesn't even reach areas kind of like Georgia. So yeah, it's going to be a quick event, thank goodness, but while it's going to be lasting, it's going to be bringing, incredible impacts. So that is a NAM. I did show you the HER model. Let me show you now a different model that is also a high resolution. It goes out to 50 hours once in a while, every 6 hours actually, not once in a while. And let's see. So it's very comparable to the HER model that I was showing you earlier. It's just a bit less precise with its radar details, but with the overall kind of macro picture, it's always a very good model to use. And notice again, there's that severe weather threat. It doesn't show it quite as vividly as other models. This one just doesn't do that. But again, it's going to be dangerous. It's going to be severe. Notice the system starts picking up speed. And we could, again, see a little bit of that snow on the backside into Iowa. I wouldn't be too surprised if we see that. And yeah, look at that wind. Very, very strong winds tomorrow across some of these areas. There could definitely be some high wind warnings and watches and whatnot. Well, there are, but there will definitely be some potential damage from that. And again, if you saw the warnings across Montana with those high wind warnings, which is kind of even more potentially destructive than these areas, seeing their high wind advisories, that's from this clipper kind of type system that moved in from the west. So I guess it's not really a clipper, but look at that. It's a very strong system. I mean, the amount of winds it's creating is incredible. So yeah, and as that pushes away, you can see these two systems quickly kind of weaken and move away and give way to our, well, next big story, which is this massive beast moving in off the west. So that's going to be potentially even more impactful. Regarding the European models, so now I want to start showing you some of these long-range models. Again, let's just quickly go over this system. You can see right there, that's what European shows as of right now. That's pretty accurate. Again, these models overall did a pretty good job with this system. They started showing concerns, concerning signs of this almost a week in advance, so definitely a lot of heads up with that. And do note, again, that system, while impressive, it is right now, it quickly moves away. It does bring a bit of snow into Ontario, and that one also across the northwest. Incredible. I mean, the amount of wind it's gonna produce across areas of Montana and whatnot. It's truly remarkable. That's gonna bring in a little bit of chill air for the northern part of the United States, but usually after such storms, you would expect a lot of cool air across the Midwest or just further south. And that's not going to be the case because we quickly start seeing a new high pressure develop. So it starts spinning these winds from the south again. A massive system in terms of precip move in towards the southwestern and kind of just western United States. The scope of this thing's massive. And you can see it starts drawing up a lot of winds from the south. So things warm up again. Look at all this precip across Southern California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona. They're going to get a lot of precipitation from these mountainous areas. Could get up to 5 feet of snow, in the tallest peaks, maybe even more. So incredible rainmaker, which I guess is good for the drought. But and you can see a very strong high pressure here, just spinning winds from the south and east here from the south and west. So we have a kind of a vacuum, a very good environment for this system to develop, and potentially again maybe some severe weather further up north, and also quite a bit of heavy snow across Montana, maybe the northern plains. And you can see that the European shows that first part of it kind of moving through, obviously dropping some strong winds and rain. But then we have a second part from that cold front starts developing quite a bit of snow potentially across Nebraska, Kansas, Colorado, into the Panhandle. Again, maybe some severe weather with this. Notice we have a large blob of precip across the eastern United States that also starts developing. And you can see this one does deliver quite a bit of snow and potentially blizzard across the upper plains, according to the European there, and it combines with that northeast precipitation. So yeah, active pattern. I mean, you saw that system, is right on the heels of this one. If you were to look at the next 240 hours, the Midwest really gets a lot of rain from those two systems combined. Notice, California, Utah, Nevada, Utah, Southwest, Northwest also pick up a lot of precipitation. Again, some of these snowfall amounts are going to be pretty impressive across the West. You can see many areas, again, potentially up towards 50 inches across the highest peaks. Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, very significant snows across their respective mountain ranges. The Bitterroots, the Wasatch, the Grand Tetons, the Cascades. And do note that if that system were to occur across the Midwest with that secondhand development, secondhand because, well, it's kind of like the second part of the system, there could also be some significant snow amounts. Still too early to go precisely into the details of this, but definitely a threat for some significant snow there. But the models are in relative disagreement. If I were to show you the GFS snowfall prediction, you can see it's consistent across the West here, but it shows a lot less snow for the Midwest, and does try developing something, but it's just not as impressive, that second part of that system. Again, that second system, not the one we're dealing with right now. So yeah, a lot of moving pieces. Canadian isn't in agreement with more of the European, but you can see it shows it further eastward, that snow threat. So that's something we'll have to watch for, disagreements. But look, also across the southern Canadian prairies, almost all the models are showing very heavy snowfall, whether it's the GFS, the European, or the Canadian. Some a little bit more than others. Sorry about that. I did not want to click on the European operational. I wanted to click on the high-res version. And let's go back to that snowfall. I think the European also shows quite a bit of heavy snow for the prairies, and yeah, indeed, just maybe a bit further towards the west. So not as much for Manitoba, but quite a bit for Saskatchewan and Alberta Clipper. So, or for Alberta, not Alberta Clipper. So that is that. Obviously, if you're living across these areas right now, it's a scary night, but thank goodness it's going to be pretty much one night and then it's over. But yeah, that's what sometimes you get with these systems when you have such incredible, environmental, workings, that we have a lot of warm air that was, it was incredible. It was records, right? So we get negative weather in terms of records as well, kind of the punishment for those warm, nice temperatures, as bad as that sounds. But do note, there is an area right now across the Panhandle of Texas where there was some severe storms even as late as last night. Now they're seeing some snow, and you can see there even is areas of winter weather advisories across, Kansas, 1 to 3 inches, definitely a possibility. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see some spot accumulations kind of along this axis through Minnesota and Iowa. All right, that is basically it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Again, we'll continue tracking, obviously, this new storm. This will probably be my last video on this system because by tomorrow at this time frame, this thing will be pretty much out of here, dwindling. So yeah, it's gonna be, again, spent a lot of time across the West. Not so much across the plains, but again, we have this massive new system. This one isn't the one that's going to be bringing that moisture to the southwest. That's a separate one. The one we're really looking at is still further out across the ocean. So yeah, it's a series of systems. Notice there's heavy snowfall warnings towards the north as well. You can see right there, an Alberta Clipper will bring near zero visibility. That's where that, the system that could be bringing those very strong winds for Montana. This is across Canada, so some snow is expected, but I would say that, again, those winds are going to be the most impressive part, with you can see up to 80 kilometers. So yeah, pretty much a blizzard. But I don't think they issue blizzard warnings for across Canada. Maybe they do. But here, probably some freezing rain. Yeah, warnings with the system ongoing there. So, yeah, a lot of activity, and you can see the grand scope of this thing. It's pretty expansive, this system we have going on right now. So, that is basically it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next episode. See ya. Bye.